All those years ago, the founding ancestor of the Tao order was afraid that those in power would become corrupt and engage in favoritism. So he created a rule. Any who conformed to the requirements of willpower and temperament would immediately become outer court disciples of the Tao order. If they passed the test of strength, then they'll be immediately recruited as inner court disciples. If they passed the test of the heart, then they would become the personal disciple of the Tao order's master. No one from the Tao order is allowed to go against those rules. There was a strange smile on the corners of Chen Dong's mouth. How bad do you think the faces of those fellows from the Tao order would look if he passes the test of the heart? Wu Yanzhong suddenly said, "What if he passed the test of the Tao?" "Impossible." Chen Dong shook his head. "Even though I don't know what that test is, even the protector of order had been stopped by it. So, it's obvious how terrifying that test is. Moreover, there hasn't been a single person that has passed it since the founding ancestor of the Tao order created those tests. While Yang Yi is an extraordinarily monstrous genius, I don't think he's at a level that surpasses all the past geniuses of the Tao order." "Right," Wu Yanzhong nodded, and then he suddenly said, "So, if Yang Yi really passes through the test of the heart and joins the Tao order, then wouldn't we have lost everything?" Qindong was speechless. The Cloud Ascension stairs had 5 tests on them, and they were tests of willpower, temperament, strength, the heart, and the Tao. These tests weren't related to a person's actual strength, and even an ordinary person could face those tests, because it tested a person's willpower and temperament. While an ordinary person might have no strength, that ordinary person would definitely possess willpower and a temperament of his own. The only difference was how great it was. Something worthy of mentioning was that one couldn't utilize one's strength while attempting to pass through the first and second test of the Cloud Ascension stairs. Because if one could utilize one's strength, then the tests would be pointless. Yang Yi had just stepped onto the stairs when a strand of heavy pressed descended upon him. At the same time, Yang Yi noticed to his astonishment that some sort of restriction seemed to have been placed upon him. The profound energy within him had instantly fallen into a deathly silent state, and he couldn't circulate it no matter what. Yang Yi pondered deeply for an instant before continuing forward. As he moved forward, the pressure upon him grew stronger and stronger, but he didn't stop and even started walking faster. The first test is to ascend 108 steps on the stairs. The Protector of Order broke the record in the Tao order that day and merely used less than 30 breaths of time to complete those 108 steps. Do all of you think Yang Yi will be able to break that record? Probably not. Based on his current speed, it would take around 100 breaths of time at least to complete those 108 steps. Look quickly. He's speeding up. Look, he's going faster and faster. What the fuck? He's running. All the others looked over and saw Yang Yi was actually dashing up the stairs. At this moment, all of them were flabbergasted, including Chen Dong's group. It didn't take long for Yang Yi to run through those 108 steps. 21 breaths of time. Someone gasped. Chen Dong spoke softly. Exactly how monstrous is he? Actually, all of them didn't know much about Yang Yi because it was like he'd just appeared out of nowhere. As for his strength, they knew that it was extremely strong and mysterious. So, they tried their best to think highly of Yang Ye's natural talent and true strength. But now they noticed that they seemed to have underestimated it all. When the Protector of Tao attempted the second test, he stayed on the spot for 20 breaths of time. How long do all of you think Yang Yi will take? At least 40 breaths of time. His willpower is absolutely strong, but perhaps his temperament isn't that great. Hehe. It'll be fun if he's able to break the Protector of Order's record again. Everyone watched as Yang Yi took a step forward, and he entered the second test, the test of temperament. Yang Ye's foot had just descended onto the next stair when the scene before him instantly changed. He was on a plain, and the sky above was gray in color. Moreover, the surroundings were filled with a dense aura of blood, severed limbs, and countless corpses. A huge cavalry covered the area over 1 kilometer away from Yang Yi. Every single one of them was at the monarch realm, and there were almost 1 million of them. All of these cavalries had scarlet red armor, and they emanated fierce killing intent that was even stronger than slaughter intent. Every single one of them was staring at Yang Yi, and boundless killing intent filled their eyes. Kill! Suddenly, a black armored cavalry who led the army raised his spear and pointed it at Yang Yi. Kill! The entire army roared furiously, and their voices simply seemed capable of tearing the earth apart and blasting the sky into pieces. The aura they emanated was beyond terrifying. Kill! As soon as they shouted once more, the entire army charged at Yang Yi. How terrifying was it when an army of 1,000,000 cavalry charged forward? Under such circumstances, even a high-rank half-saint would probably be completely suppressed by their imposing aura. It's real, very real. That was what Yang Yi thought at this moment. At the moment they charged at him, he sensed a trace of trembling coming from the depths of his soul. After all, the scene of 1,000,000 monarch realm experts charging at someone was extremely terrifying. Even if he possessed the enlightened sword heart and knew that all of it wasn't real, he still couldn't help but be slightly deterred. However, all of this was truly inferior when compared to the calamity that Profounder Continent faced that day. After all, this was nothing when compared to the lightning of obliteration sent down by the eye of the heaven Tao. So, Yang Yi took a step forward and suddenly roared, "Fuck off!" As soon as he spoke, it was like a tornado had swept forward, and the scene before him instantly changed. A moment passed before everything returned to normal. The illusion had vanished, and Yang Yi took another step forward. Clamorous noise immediately resounded in the surroundings. 3 breaths of time. He actually used only 3 breaths of time. My God, is there something wrong with the cloud ascension stairs? He actually used just 3 breaths of time. My God, heavens! I was almost terrified to death when I faced them that day, and even if I realized it wasn't real in the end, I was still terrified to the point my legs felt weak. But he actually used just 3 breaths of time. I've attempted that test in the past. I ran like a madman at that time, and I wished for nothing more than to have more legs. But why was he able to overcome it with such ease? If he wasn't an enemy of the Tao Order, I might even suspect that the Tao Order was letting him pass through with ease. 3 breaths of time. The protector of order can probably go smash his head against a wall now. Chen Dong and Wu Yanzhong exchanged glances, and both of them saw shock in each other's eyes. Yang Yi paid no attention to the other. He just continued forward, and the scene before him changed once more when he ascended over a dozen steps. This time he was in a private room. There was a person standing not too far away from him, and it was none other than him. It was a person who looked exactly like him. The only difference was that this Yang Yi was at the peak of the monarch realm, and he just happened to be an entire realm stronger than the real Yang Yi. Yang Yi spoke softly. "This is the test of strength? Heaven rend." Suddenly, the Yang Yi who stood before him drew his sword, and then a ray of sword energy swept towards Yang Yi. Yang Ye's eyelids twitched because this Yang Ye's heaven rend was even stronger than his own because that Yang Yi had actually overlapped 30 heaven rends. Yang Yi didn't try to put up any defenses and he just allowed it to strike him. Bang! Yang Yi took around 10 steps back. It isn't an illusion. Yang Yi had a solemn expression in his eyes as he gazed at the mark on his chest. Earlier, he was bewildered because he possessed the enlightened sword heart. So while illusions might be able to deceive his eyes, it was absolutely impossible for any illusions to deceive his heart. However, he felt that the scene before him was extremely real, but he still intended to confirm it. Sure enough, it was real because he'd been injured by the sword energy. Actually, if 30 overlapped heaven rends were enhanced by sword intent, then it would be absolutely capable of breaking through his defenses. Unfortunately, it wasn't, so it was much weaker. Suddenly, the fake Yang Yi transformed into a ray of light that shot towards him. It was the mortal sword technique. You can copy my techniques, but can you copy the energy of the laws? Yang Yi muttered, and then he tapped his right foot against the ground and the decay lows swept out from beneath his foot. In an instant, the scene before him melted like snow beneath the scorching sun, and it vanished in an instant. He broke another record. Another record. The protector of order stood on the spot for around 6 hours that day, yet he actually used less than 10 breaths of time. Is the Tao order really not going easy on him? Don't get anxious. Relax. The true test has only just begun. Many people passed the first 3 tests with ease, but they were stopped by the 4th. Even the protector of order was held back at the 4th test for 3 days and 3 nights. Yang Yi will probably be stopping here, because the 4th test is supposedly unrelated to one's temperament or natural talent. Then what's the test related to? I don't know. In any case, I heard that a question left behind by the Tao Order's founding ancestor resides there. The correct answer will allow him to pass, but the wrong answer will immediately expel him from the stairs. Everyone watched as Yang Yi took another 10 steps forward. Just like it had before this, the scene before him changed once more. Yang Yi opened his eyes, and then his expression suddenly changed. Because Su Qingshi, Xiao Yushi, and Bairu, and Nanjing Xianxia, Ding Xiaoyao, and the others were standing before him. If only one of them can accompany you until death, then who would you choose? A voice suddenly resounded. Who would I choose? Su Qingshi, Xiao Yushi, and Bairu, and Nanjing, Xianxia, Ding Xiaoyao. Yang Yi glanced at them all, and then he smiled. Can I choose them all? The voice replied, No, that's the rule. You're in my territory, so you have to follow my rules. Yang Yi said, What if I insist? Then you'll die. The voice continued, Death awaits those who break the rules. As soon as the voice finished speaking, a mysterious force suddenly appeared here, and then the space throughout the surroundings started trembling, as if it would shatter at any moment. That force was extremely powerful, and Yang Yi immediately discerned that he was far from being a match for the force in the surroundings, because it was the force of a Saint Realm expert. The voice said, This is your last chance. Answer me. Yang Yi shook his head. I still insist on choosing all of them. A moment of silence ensued before the voice said, Why? Aren't you afraid of death? Yang Yi pointed at his heart and said, If I choose any one of them, then it would be equivalent to betraying the rest. Betraying them would be equivalent to betraying my heart and causing me to feel guilty. A man should live without guilt to the heavens, the earth, or himself. So, I choose all of them. The voice remained silent for a long time before it said, The test of the heart is a test of a clear conscience. You've passed. You can become the personal disciple of the current sect master of the Tao Order, and no one including the sect master can refuse. As soon as the voice finished speaking, the scene before him changed once more and everything returned to normal. 20 breaths of time. He broke another record. Countless spectators in the surroundings were astounded, and it included Chen Dong and the others. If they weren't aware that the Tao Order wanted to kill Yang Yi, even they would think that the Tao Order was going easy on Yang Yi and helping him pass through the tests. After all, the Protector of Order had been trapped in the 4th test for around 6 hours. But Yang Yi had just used 20 breaths of time. So, it made them wonder if Yang Yi was too monstrous, or that fellow, the Protector of Order, was too worthless. The surroundings were deathly silent as everyone was silently awaiting the Tao Order's response. After all, the Tao Order's founding ancestor had said that anyone who passed the 4th test could become the personal disciple of the current sect master. Moreover, no one could change that rule, and even the sect master couldn't deny it. If the Tao Order's founding ancestor was dead, then perhaps the Tao Order's master might refuse Yang Yi. After all, Yang Yi was their enemy. However, the problem was that the Tao Order's founding ancestor seemed to still be alive. A long time passed before a voice resounded from the mountain in the sky. One not from my own sect definitely carries ill intent. My Tao Order won't accept you as a disciple. The founding ancestor would definitely accept my decision if he finds out. The surroundings remained very calm because this response was within their expectations. Yang Yi had killed so many members of the Tao Order, and he'd even trampled upon the Tao Order's face in public. If they were to accept him as a disciple of their sect now, then where would the Tao Order put its face? Most importantly, if the Tao Order agreed and Yang Yi refused, then the Tao Order would be truly humiliated, because countless people would spread the word that the Tao Order had begged Yang Yi to join them, but Yang Yi refused. If something like that happened, then the Dao order wouldn't just lose face. It would become the laughingstock of the entire prefecture. So, no matter which reason it was, the Dao order would absolutely not take the initiative to recruit Yang Yi as a disciple of their sect, unless Yang Yi asked himself. But was that even possible? If Yang Yi were to ask the Dao order to accept him, then it wouldn't just be his reputation that's destroyed. The ancient sword school's reputation would be destroyed as well. Moreover, Yang Yi would offend the ancient sword school in the process. Coupled with the severe enmity between Yang Yi and the Dao order, Yang Yi might have to face two enemies instead of just one. So, it was impossible for Yang Yi to request the Dao order to accept him. Thus, the matter between Yang Yi and the Dao order still hadn't come to an end. Yang Yi wasn't surprised by the Dao order's response. He smiled and was about to continue forward to attempt the fifth test. However, the one-armed man suddenly appeared in front of him. The one-armed man said, "You're very strong." Yang Yi replied, "You're not weak yourself." Even though he hadn't fought the man, his intuition told him that the man was slightly dangerous. "I once attempted to ascend the cloud ascension stairs, but I was trash when compared to you." The one-armed man continued, "I'm really curious. Did you pass with your own ability, or did you use some other methods?" Yang Yi said, "Is that important?" The man replied, "To be honest, it felt very uncomfortable to see you pass through 4 tests with such ease." Yang Yi said, "Wouldn't you know the answer if you attacked me?" The man pondered deeply for a moment before he nodded. "Right." As soon as he finished speaking, he placed his right hand on the hilt of the saber which hung on his waist. In an instant, a terrifying strand of saber intent surged out explosively from within him. Everywhere it passed, space started rippling incessantly, and there were even countless fine cracks spreading through it. It was an utterly shocking sight. Peak second-level heaven rank saber intent. A solemn expression arose in Chundong's eyes when he witnessed this scene. Because the one-armed man's saber intent was no ordinary second-level heaven rank saber intent. It was peak second-level heaven rank saber intent. In other words, the one-armed man might advance to the third level of heaven rank saber intent at any moment. Chundong and the others gazed at Yang Yi, yet they noticed that he seemed extremely calm and composed, and this allowed them to instantly relax slightly. The one-armed man held the hilt of his sword and said, "The moment you arrived just happened to be the critical moment of my charge into the third level of heaven rank saber intent. I was 50% confident in my ability to succeed. Unfortunately, you arrived and even killed forth. While the elders refused to let me leave my closed-door cultivation, and they even asked me to rest at ease and charge into the third level of heaven rank saber intent. But how can I possibly stand by idly when my Dao order is in trouble? Not to mention that I'm the only one amongst the Exalt Realm disciples who can fight you. Come, let me witness the ability of your ancient sword school." As soon as he finished speaking, he swiftly drew his saber and slashed it down. Torrent Splitter! A ray of saber energy that was over 10 long shot forward, and it tore through the sky towards Yang Yi. Everywhere it passed, even space was immediately sliced apart, and a huge spatial rite was left in its wake. Moreover, the spatial rift wasn't just unable to close swiftly, it was even growing larger and larger. In the end, it was over 15 wide. The spectators were beyond shocked when they witnessed this scene, because even a half-saint would probably be unable to execute such a terrifying attack. Yang Yi had a serious expression in his eyes because that attack could pose a threat to him. While his body was comparable to the body of a demon beast at the mid-rank half-saint realm, it wasn't invincible. If nothing unexpected happened, then even if he could survive by using his body to forcefully resist that attack, he would definitely lose a limb or two. So Yang Yi didn't dare act carelessly at all. He flipped his palm and the ancient sheath appeared in his grasp. After that, his profound energy surged madly into the ancient sheath while a sword appeared in his right hand. He sheathed it and drew it swiftly. The sword shattered as a strand of sword energy flashed forward. It was an attack that carried 20 overlapped heaven rends. The sword energy and saber energy collided. Bang! A huge explosion resounded in the sky as countless threads of sword energy and saber energy swept towards the surroundings. Space was instantly torn apart before them while a powerful wave of energy surged out from the point of collision, and it shattered the space in its path into bits. Suddenly, another strand of saber energy swept through the air, and it shot swiftly towards Xianxia. Moreover, it completely obliterated the remaining sword energy and saber energy in its path. Xianxia's eyes narrowed slightly as he sheathed his sword and immediately drew it in one smooth and swift motion. OM! The sword shattered as a sword howl resounded, and a strand of sword energy swept forward. The sword energy and saber energy collided once more. This time, the saber energy instantly blasted Xianxia's sword energy apart and continued forward. It instantly arrived before Xianxia and was about to slash Xianxia into two. Sword energy that isn't enhanced by sword intent is too weak in the end. Looks like I must restore my sword intent as soon as possible once this is over. Xianxia sighed in his heart as he took a step forward, and then he clenched his right fist and punched. Bang! Xianxia's arm and the saber energy trembled violently before the saber energy was blasted apart. Meanwhile, Xianxia was pushed over 10 steps back by the force carried by the saber energy. The one-armed man was about to draw his saber again when Xianxia suddenly vanished on the spot. He was in front of the one-armed man when he appeared once more, and then a ray of light flashed as the tip of a sword arrived before the one-armed man's forehead. The corners of the one-armed man's eyes twitched, but his reaction wasn't slow at all. His figure moved slightly to the side and dodged Xianxia's attack while he launched a slanted stab with his saber. It was at an extremely tricky angle, and it shot directly at Xianxia's heart. Xianxia didn't try to ward off the attack, and he just twisted his sword slightly and slashed it down. Bang! Hiss! Xianxia took 3 steps back while a very deep mark from a saber could be seen on his chest. However, it hadn't pierced through his skin, but there was a drop of blood on the tip of his sword. The spectators were shocked by this scene and quickly shot their gazes towards the one-armed man. They saw a blood-red mark running down from the man's forehead to his chin. Blood was seeping out incessantly from within the injury, and it didn't take long for it to cover his entire face. Your body is very strong. The one-armed man gazed at Xianxia while his voice still remained very calm. However, there was a solemn and fearful expression in his eyes. Earlier, if he hadn't dodged instinctively at the critical moment, then he would have definitely been chopped into 2 right now. Indeed, Xianxia nodded. It could be said that he could rely on his physical body to remain in a practically invincible position during battles with those at the same realm of cultivation as him. I have a technique that I practiced painstakingly for 15 years, but I've never used it until now. I have no choice but to use it now. As soon as he finished speaking, a strand of dark blue flames suddenly arose around the one-armed man's body. At the same time, the aura he emanated started rising madly. In just an instant, the one-armed man's hair had turned snow-white while wrinkles covered his entire face, and his entire body surged with death energy. Xianxia's eyes narrowed while a solemn expression appeared in his eyes for the very first time during the battle. Because it was soul ignition. Moreover, his soul wasn't the only thing that the one-armed man had ignited. He'd ignited his lifespan and blood as well. The saber in the one-armed man's hand shook violently while the space around it actually started cracking apart, and those cracks quickly swept towards the surroundings. In less than a breath of time, the space around both Xianxia and the one-armed man had numerous fine cracks all over it. The space in the surroundings wasn't able to endure the one-armed man's saber energy. Spatial rifts were very terrifying to many, but it wasn't that terrifying to experts like them who'd grasped the secrets of space. Of course, the precondition was that they weren't swept into the chaotic flow of space. Otherwise, not to mention them, even a high-rank half-saint would be minced into bits. Xianxia, let's do this. As soon as he finished speaking, he swung his saber down, and a beam of saber energy shot out from the tip of his saber. Everywhere it passed, space melted like snow in boiling oil, and it instantly shattered into pieces. The powerful force and energy carried within the saber energy even blasted apart a few hills that were around 3 kilometers around them. Moreover, even the ground had started to crack apart. All the disciples of the ancient sword school had heavy expressions on their faces when they witnessed this scene. They had no doubt that this attack could kill a half-saint and even a mid-rank half-saint with ease. How will Yang Yi deal with this attack? All of them shot their gazes towards Yang Yi. Meanwhile, Yang Yi took a step forward, and the shattered space around him was instantly restored to its original state. At the same time, the saber energy immediately started slowing down before finally stopping on the spot. Everything in the surroundings seemed to have been frozen. The sword domain. Excitement and joy surged through the eyes of all the disciples of the ancient sword school, because it was the sword domain that they dreamed of possessing. Moreover, they'd never laid eyes on the sword domain in their lifetimes. After all, even the sword emperor of the ancient sword school, Lu Wanner, hadn't grasped such a profound ability like the sword domain. All the disciples of the sword school stared fixedly at Yang Yi, as they were deeply afraid of missing even the slightest detail. Shatter! As soon as Yang Yi spoke, the saber energy instantly shattered into pieces and transformed into nothingness. The one-armed man's saber energy was truly formidable. After all, he'd ignited his soul, blood, and lifespan, so it could really kill a half-saint with ease. However, the one-armed man was still quite weak in Yang Ye's opinion. To be more precise, they weren't on the same level at all. If the Tao Order knew what had happened on Profounder Continent, then its higher-ups would definitely die of regret. The sword domain. There was a trace of shock in the deathly still eyes of the one-armed man, and there was also a wisp of unwillingness and helplessness. However, it didn't take long for his eyes to close while his figure crashed down to the ground. The Tao Order had lost once more. Countless disciples of the ancient sword school started cheering and shouting with joy. Yang Yi raised his head and looked up towards the sky. Who else? Tao Order. Who else do you have? Tao Order. Who else do you have? Tao Order. Who else do you have? Countless disciples of the sword school roared furiously. It could be said that this was the most satisfying conflict after fighting with the Tao Order for so long, because the ancient sword school had completely trampled upon the Tao Order's honor. Chun Dong suddenly appeared by Yang Ye's side and said, "Be careful." Yang Yi nodded. The Tao Order had three choices now. The first was to continue sending experts to fight him, the second was to choose to end the conflict peacefully, and the third was to fight desperately to the death and disregard all rules. The first two choices weren't that bad, but the last was definitely extremely dangerous. Even though he knew that the sword school had definitely dispatched Saint Realm experts to protect him from the shadows, if the Tao Order really shed all pretenses and stopped abiding by the rules, then he would absolutely face death. After all, he would be pursued by Saint Realm experts, and it might even be a few of them. This really doesn't feel good. Yang Ye's eyes narrowed. He really could be considered to be a monstrous genius right now, and he was very strong as well. However, that was only in comparison to those at the same realm of cultivation. He was still too weak when compared to Saint Realm experts. He was extremely weak before them. He was very well aware of that, and the only reason he was still alive right now was because he had the ancient sword school's protection. It had nothing to do with him at all. I must restore my sword intent as soon as possible. My strength must be improved as quickly as I can as well. Yang Yi decided that he would concentrate on cultivating once he was done here and try his best to raise his strength to the half-saint realm. Only by attaining the half-saint realm would he have a chance at resisting Saint Realm experts, and even if he couldn't defeat them, he would be able to flee at least. So, he wouldn't be in the same situation as he was now. One where he would have no chance to escape if a Saint Realm expert decided to act against him. There was a long period of silence in the surroundings before a voice suddenly came from the sky. Yang Yi, no one in the Exalt realm throughout my Tao Order is a match for you. If you're confident in your ability, then why don't you ascend to the Monarch realm? Chun Dong and the others immediately heaved sighs of relief when they heard this, because it represented that the Tao Order hadn't chosen to shed all pretenses. If it had, then it would definitely result in an outcome where both sides were severely injured. Once that happened, the Demon King in the north would definitely act, and then both the Tao Order and Ancient Sword School would cease to exist. It wasn't that the Tao Order didn't want to go to war with the ancient sword school, it didn't dare to. Similarly, the ancient sword school didn't dare to as well. That was the main reason why there had been no large-scale wars between the Tao Order and ancient sword school, even if they were hostile against each other. A slight smile appeared on the corners of Xianxia's mouth when he heard the voice, and he said, "Advancing to the monarch realm isn't something that can be accomplished at will. Moreover, once I do, it represents that your Tao Order can send monarch realm experts to fight me. That would be a huge loss to me, and it might even result in my death." The voice said, "Are you afraid of death?" "Of course I am." Xianxia continued, "Is anyone not afraid of death?" The voice resounded once more. "If you don't advance to the monarch realm, then I guarantee that you'll die right now." Xianxia withdrew his smile and looked up into the sky for a long time before he said, "Looks like your Tao Order intends to play with me until the end." The voice replied, "Isn't that what your ancient sword school wants?" Xianxia remained silent for a long time before he spoke once more. "I can advance into the monarch realm, but I have a condition. I'm sure you're aware that advancing into the monarch realm requires a huge amount of extreme-grade energy stones, and I just so happen to be very poor. So, 100,000. 100,000? Xianxia was stunned, and then he spoke angrily. "Do you think I'm like the disciples of your Tao Order? I'm not a weakling like them. If I'm going to advance into the monarch realm with my natural talent and potential, then how could it be possible without at least 1,000,000 extreme-grade energy stones?" 1,000,000. Countless people gasped throughout the surroundings when they heard him. What a bastard! 1,000,000. While such an amount of energy stones was nothing to the Tao Order, it was an astronomical figure to anyone else. Such exaggeration! He even dares to extort the Tao Order. This is really something only he is capable of. I think I feel slight admiration for him now. While he's quite arrogant, I have to say that he really is qualified to act like that. After a long moment of silence, the voice resounded once more. "Do you really want to die?" Xianxia laughed coldly. "Don't threaten me because it's completely useless against me. I'll say it right now. Give me 1,000,000 extreme-grade energy stones and I'll advance to the monarch realm right away. If you don't, then I'll continue challenging the Exalt Realm cultivators of your Tao Order. Of course, if your Tao Order is shameless enough and sends monarch realm experts to fight me, then I have nothing to say. Give it to him." Suddenly, an extremely dignified voice resounded from the mountain in the sky. As soon as the voice resounded, a spatial ring immediately appeared in front of Xianxia. Xianxia swept it with his consciousness and determined that there were exactly 1,000,000 in there. Xianxia glanced at the sky and said, "Since your Tao Order wants to play until the end, then let's play." As soon as he finished speaking, bang! A terrifying aura erupted from Xianxia, and it caused the space around him to ripple violently. It was an extremely shocking sight. The monarch realm. All the spectators were dumbstruck. He attained the monarch realm just like that? What? How monstrous is he? Watching him makes me feel like I cultivated throughout my lifetime in vain. The corners of Qindong and Wu Yanzhong's mouth twitched as well, because it was truly quite a blow to everyone's confidence. Good. Very good. The voice from the sky was quite low and gloomy, and the killing intent within it wasn't concealed at all. "Why don't?" Xianxia suddenly said, "Why don't we shake hands and make peace? All right?" An uproar immediately erupted in the surroundings. The expressions of all the disciples from the ancient sword school changed slightly. What's he trying to do? Could he be afraid of the Tao Order? Many disciples of the sword school revealed slightly unsightly expressions towards Xianxia when they thought up to this point. After all, Xianxia was representing the ancient sword school right now. So, if he took the initiative to seek reconciliation, then it would be the sword school that lost face. The voice resounded once more from the sky. "What? Are you afraid now?" Xianxia nodded. "I am." Clamorous noise resounded once more while Chun Dong and the others had gloomy expressions on their faces. Meanwhile, Xianxia said, "I'm afraid that once I kill all the disciples of your Tao Order, your Tao order would act shamelessly and start sending Saint Realm experts to pursue and kill me. Alas, after all, I'm only at the monarch realm. How could I not feel afraid if your Tao order were to send saints after me? Chun Dong and the other disciples of the ancient sword school were slightly stunned, and then they roared with laughter. Senior Brother Yang, you should just stop right now. The geniuses of the Tao order would be annihilated if you continue. At that time, what would you do if the Tao order acts desperately and sends saints after you? Exactly. Let's stop right now. Let's go back to the sword school. Chun Dong grinned. Interesting. Indeed. Wu Yanzhong nodded with agreement. A long time passed before a voice came from the sky. Don't worry. Saints aren't needed to deal with you. Come. The geniuses of my Tao order are waiting for you. Meanwhile, one of the disciples of the sword school shouted, Everyone. I'm sure all of you heard that. The Tao order won't send Saint Realm experts against Yang Yi. If they do break that promise, I hope that all of you can spread the word, so that the world will know the true colors of the Tao order. The others in the surroundings remained silent. There's no need for saints to kill him. I'm more than enough. Suddenly, the voice of a woman resounded, and then a woman walked slowly down the stairs. It's the Crimson Maiden, Fu Jingxian, someone exclaimed from amidst the spectators. Wasn't she said to be in closed-door cultivation until she advances? What's she doing here? A woman was walking down from the top of the stairs. Gorgeous and enchanting. She felt extremely gorgeous and enchanting to them at first glance. She had a beautiful appearance, brows that were shaped like willow leaves, eyes that were bewitching like the eyes of a fox, a jade-white complexion, and a curvaceous body, especially those two large peaks before her chest. It seemed to be intentional as her clothes were quite low, and it exposed half of those peaks, and there was a deep ravine buried between the peaks. It was a woman who could make any man go mad. Of course, the reason she was described as enchanting was because she was completely crimson red. She had crimson red hair, brows, and even her eyes were a strange crimson red. Chun Dong had an unprecedentedly solemn expression on his face when he saw her, and he walked over to Yang Yi and said, She's Fu Jingxian. Her origins are mysterious, and she's extremely ruthless, especially to me. Someone once teased her in the past, and she annihilated the man's entire family. Moreover, not only is she ruthless, even her strength is extremely terrifying as well. She once killed a high-rank half-saint. Supposedly, even the protector of order fears her a little. Which one of you from the ancient sword school has come to challenge us? Quickly come forward so that I can kill you and return to cultivating. Fu Jingxian stood on the stairs with her eyes slightly closed, and her red hair fluttered with the wind. She seemed indescribably cold and proud. Yang Yi gazed at Fu Jingxian for a short while, and then he started walking towards her. Meanwhile, Chun Dong stopped him. Chun Dong gazed at Yang Yi and spoke in an extremely serious manner. Don't be careless, and flee if you're no match for her. Those old fellows won't blame you for that, and they won't just stand by idly and watch you get killed. Understand? Yang Ye's heart felt warm as he said, Don't worry. As soon as he finished speaking, Yang Ye's figure flashed off and arrived before Fu Jingxian. Attack me or you probably won't have another chance. Fu Jingxian still didn't open her eyes. Yang Yi chuckled and said, Fu Jingxian. Long time no see. Fu Jingxian's figure trembled violently when she heard this, and then she opened her eyes slowly. Her figure shook once more when she saw Yang Yi, and her eyes were filled with shock. You're still alive. You wished I did? Yang Yi joked. He'd finally encountered a familiar face in this world, and so Yang Yi was in quite a good mood, because besides being considered as an outsider, he had no sense of belonging here. Now, he'd finally met a familiar face, so it would be a lie if he said that he wasn't happy, even if she could be considered to be his enemy right now. You! Fu Jingxian had an extremely complicated expression on her face. Yang Yi asked, Do you know how Xiao Yushi and the others are now? She glanced at him and said, They weren't with me, so I don't know. Yang Yi asked, Didn't all of you leave together? She shook her head. We were attacked by a mysterious force when we left Profounder Continent, and it separated us. But it didn't matter because we were almost out of Profounder Continent, so Xiao Yushi and the others should be in the Central Divine Prefecture. So that's why. Yang Yi nodded, and then he glanced at her. Looks like you're doing well here. I sense a very dangerous aura coming from you. Fu Jingxian replied. You seem to have become weaker. Yang Yi grinned. I really am slightly weaker than before. Fu Jingxian spoke in a low voice. What exactly happened on the continent? They died. Many people died. Yang Yi continued. Moreover, Profounder Continent doesn't exist anymore. Fu Jingxian fell silent, and so did Yang Yi. What the fuck are they doing? Why aren't they fighting? It can't be, right? They seem to be chatting? Could they know each other? TSK. Could Yang Yi had fallen for her? After all, Fu Jingxian is a rare beauty. So not to mention Yang Yi. I think even a eunuch's heart would be moved by her. If Yang Yi really has fallen for her, then the ancient sword school is probably going to suffer a huge loss. Chen Dong and the others frowned as well, because they were really worried about that possibility as well. There was a long period of silence between them before Fu Jingxian said, How did you get into conflict with the Tao Order? Yang Yi said, One of their disciples wanted to kill me, so I killed him. Then they sent me a coffin. You should know my temper well. How could I possibly just jump in on my own accord? So I destroyed the coffin. That really did cause a huge amount of problems to arise, and the Tao Order constantly sent its experts to kill me. In the end, I felt it was quite troublesome. So I came here myself to put an end to it all. Fu Jingxian gazed at him for a long time and said, This isn't Profounder Continent. Yang Yi gazed at her for a long time as well before he chuckled. It's all the same to me. In the past, you were an existence that I had to look up to. Fu Jingxian spoke solemnly. Now, I'd like to find out if it's still the same. Yang Yi said, I'll kill you if you attack me. The corners of Fu Jingxian's eyelids twitched, and it didn't take long for everything about Yang Yi in the past to flash through her mind. Yang Yi took a deep breath and looked up into the sky. Fu Jingxian, out of consideration for the fact that we come from the same world, I'll waste my breath for a little bit longer. I know you've become very strong to the point that even I feel threatened. However, such a threat is nothing to me, honestly, because I've seen something that was 1,000 or even tens of thousands times more dangerous than you. At this moment, Yang Yi recalled the eye of the heaven Tao and the endless divine lightning of obliteration. After experiencing that day, any imposing aura and danger on this world was nothing to him, even if it was the pressure and imposing aura from a saint. Yang Yi continued, I am quite a bit weaker than before, but trust me, if I'm willing to expose some things, then killing you would really not take too much effort. You can try if you don't believe me, but I guarantee that it'll definitely be the last battle you ever fight. He did consider their past relationship when facing her, but if she attacked him, then it meant that she was standing on the opposite side. In other words, she'd have chosen to be his enemy, and he never showed mercy to his enemies. Fu Jingxian gazed at Yang Yi for a long time before she said, You're still so overbearing, decisive, and confident like you were in the past. Did she fear Yang Yi? She naturally did. It should be said that no one from Profounder Continent didn't fear Yang Yi, especially because she'd stayed by his side for some time, and she was quite familiar with his temper. Since he'd said that he would kill her, she knew that he wasn't joking. Yang Yi said, I haven't changed, but you've changed quite a bit. Fu Jingxian asked, What's changed? Yang Yi said, You've become confident, much more confident than before. No matter what, congratulations on obtaining new life in this world. When he spoke up to this point, he looked up at the sky and said, You can send the next one now. Jingxian, what's going on? As soon as Yang Yi had finished speaking, a beautiful woman appeared by Fu Jingxian's side. Fu Jingxian gazed at Yang Yi for a long time and said, I'm no match for him. Actually, she was still quite confident in her ability. After all, she wasn't the same Fu Jingxian anymore. However, she didn't want to fight Yang Yi. The beautiful woman gazed at Fu Jingxian for a short while before she asked, "Why?" "He's from the same place as me." Fu Jingxian spoke solemnly. "Master, if it's possible, then make peace with him." "Peace?" The beautiful woman shook her head and said, "That's impossible. Little girl, since you don't want to fight him, then head back and cultivate well. Let me see how monstrous someone from the lower dimensions is." Fu Jingxian glanced at Yang Yi before she turned around and left. "Needless to say, you're really not bad." She gazed at Yang Yi and said, "I understand Xianxia's temper very well, and she doesn't even take the protector of orders seriously. However, I'm able to sense that she's quite fearful of you. I'm truly really curious. Exactly what sort of person are you?" Yang Yi said, "Do you want to hear the truth?" She said, "Go ahead." Yang Yi smiled. "If you knew of my past, then trust me, your Tao order would definitely stop at nothing to kill me, even if it has to fight desperately and take me down with it. Otherwise, your Tao order should make peace with me now." Her eyes narrowed slightly. She was about to say something when Yang Yi spoke once more. "Actually, I was exaggerating. I hope you didn't believe it." Ha ha ha. When he spoke up to this point, Yang Yi walked towards the end of the cloud ascension stairs and said, "Since I've already passed 4 of the tests, I'll just overcome the 5th as well. If you succeed, then I'll write a character to express my acknowledgement." The woman's voice resounded from behind him. "Writing from a saint? Haha, not bad. Just wait then." Yang Yi roared with laughter as he entered the 5th test. The scene before him changed once more. There was a towering tree before him, and it stretched endlessly into the distance. Besides that, there was a green-robed old man seated cross-legged beneath the tree. Yang Ye's expression changed slightly when he saw the old man, because he noticed that he was actually unable to sense the old man. No, it should be said that he felt that the old man had completely fused with the heavens and the earth here. The old man was the heavens and he was the earth as well. That was what Yang Yi felt. The green-robed old man suddenly opened his eyes and gazed at Yang Yi. The enlightened sword heart, perfection of sword intent in the past. The sword domain, 2 types of laws, a body comparable to a half-saint, and a foundation so solid that it's simply unprecedented. Moreover, there's a mysterious force concealing you from the workings of the heavens. What a young man! What a young man indeed! Unfortunately, you're an enemy of my Tao order. Yang Yi was at a loss for words. Yang Yi had an unprecedentedly solemn expression on his face, because it had only taken the old man a single glance to see through all his secrets except the primordial pagoda. He's above the saint realm. That old man is definitely above the saint realm. Yang Yi suppressed the shock in his heart and spoke solemnly, "Senior, you're the founding ancestor of the Tao order?" The old man replied, "Your disposition isn't bad. You are still able to stay so calm and composed when I've exposed all your secrets. It's rare, truly rare. Unfortunately, it really is such a pity." When he spoke up to this point, the old man suddenly stood up and said, "While you're an enemy of my Tao order, it's destiny that brought us together here. So how about we do this? If you pass this test, then I'll bestow fortune upon you. But if you fail, then you'll stay here forever. Otherwise, my Tao order will definitely be destroyed at your hands. Senior, aren't you afraid that my ancient sword school would take revenge?" Yang Yi was quite regretful now. If he knew that the Tao order's founding ancestor resided in the 5th test, then he would absolutely not enter this place. Even though the old man wasn't the true body of the Tao order's founding ancestor and was only just a strand of will, it was absolutely not something which he could resist. Perhaps the ancient sword school might fight my Tao order to the death if you were still alive. However, the old man continued, if you are dead, then trust me, they will absolutely not fight my Tao order to the death, because no matter how monstrous you were, you are still dead. A dead genius is completely worthless. Since you're worthless, then how could they possibly fight my Tao order to the death for your sake? Yang Yi fell silent because the old man was very right. If the old man killed him right now, then while the ancient sword school might attack, it would absolutely not fight the Tao order to the death. Of course, it would be a completely different situation if he was alive. The ancient sword school couldn't be blamed for that, and he could only blame himself for courting death. Xianxia pondered deeply for a short while and said, "Looks like I have no other choice?" "You really have no choice," the old man continued. "So, are you ready?" Xianxia nodded and said, "Come, let me see exactly what has been stopping the disciples of your Tao order for tens of thousands of years. It isn't anything great, and it's just a simple question. You have a single chance to answer it. Get it right and you live. Get it wrong and you'll die," said the old man. Xianxia said, "Let's begin then." The old man's expression suddenly became serious as he said, "What's the Tao? What's the Tao?" Xianxia's brows knit together, but it didn't take long for them to relax. After that, he clenched his fist and waved it. "This is the Tao. You're quite confident." The old man said, "Unfortunately, a fist isn't the Tao. So you've lost." Xianxia said, "There are a myriad of Taos throughout the world, and every person has his own Tao. How can you say that my fist isn't the Tao?" The old man said, "Then tell me why your fist is the Tao." Xianxia looked the old man in the eye and said, "One, my fist is strong enough. Then it's the Tao if I say it is. It's just that simple." The old man gazed at Xianxia for a short while before he spoke. "But your fist doesn't seem to be strong enough." Xianxia replied, "It'll grow stronger." The old man said, "What if others don't let it get stronger?" Xianxia answered, "If the heavens stand in my way, then I'll slaughter the heavens. If the earth stands in my way, then I'll split the earth. If men stand in my way, then I'll kill them all. If all things in the world stand in my way, then I'll kill as I go until everything is destroyed. That is my Tao." The old man gazed at Xianxia in silence for a very long time. Meanwhile, the profound energy within Xianxia started circulating, and he was ready to immediately react if the old man made the slightest movement. His goal wasn't to kill the old man but to survive. Because the Saint Realm experts of the ancient sword school were definitely outside, and so long as he could survive for a few breaths of time, then it was very likely for him to survive. After all, the old man was only a strand of will, and it wasn't the Tao Order's founding ancestor's real body. A long time passed before the old man spoke again. "Your disposition really is suitable to cultivate in the sword." Xianxia said, "Senior, you acknowledge my Tao?" The old man shook his head and said, "In the end, the Tao of slaughter isn't the right way. As the greater your intent to kill is, the more consumed you will be, and that would make it more and more difficult for you to break through into the Saint Realm in the future. Moreover, it won't just stop at the Saint Realm. Every single advancement you make will be many times more difficult than others." Xianxia said, "Then you're prepared to kill me?" The old man shook his head again and said, "Even though the Tao of slaughter isn't the right way, it's still a Tao. But it's only your Tao. Since it's a Tao, then you've naturally passed this test. Don't worry, I won't go back on my word." When he spoke up to this point, the old man suddenly looked up towards the sky and said, "I have 2 inheritances to pass down. The first is called the 9 rebirth technique. Just as its name implies, it's equivalent to experiencing death 9 times. Of course, it isn't true death, and it's actually the process of destroying one's cultivation and regaining it." Destroying and regaining one's cultivation? Xianxia had immediately decided not to cultivate the technique when he heard this, because he really didn't want to relive the days where he was weak. The old man nodded and asked abruptly, "Do you know why I left those 5 tests behind?" Xianxia said, "To choose outstanding geniuses for the Tao Order." The old man shook his head while a glimmer of recollection could be seen in his eyes. "When I was young, I wanted to change my fate, but I was rejected by all the sects of that time because of my natural talent. I was naturally unwilling to accept that, so from that moment onward, I exhausted all my time on cultivating, and I was much more hardworking than any other. If there were no resources to cultivate, then I would hunt demon beasts to earn it on my own. If I had no cultivation techniques, I created my own. If I had no combat techniques, I created my own as well. When he spoke up to this point, the old man grinned. 20 years later, not a single one of the extraordinary geniuses of those sects who rejected me were a match for me. I left those tests behind to give those without natural talent a chance. Because as far as I'm concerned, one can lack natural talent, but one can absolutely not lack willpower and tenacity. Xianxia said, "What do you want to tell me from all of that?" The old man gazed at Xianxia and said, "You have willpower, tenacity, and natural talent. Moreover, you're ruthless and decisive. If you live, then my Tao order will definitely be destroyed at your hands." Xianxia's eyelids twitched, and he said, "Senior, you've spoken so much just to find an excuse to kill me? I wouldn't go so low." The old man continued, "Allow me to return the topic to where it was. The 9 rebirth technique is a technique I created all those years ago. While it's extremely dangerous to discard your cultivation and cultivate it once more, the gains you obtain would be enormous. Because every single time you cultivate again will transform your body and soul." Xianxia asked, "Exactly what benefits does it provide?" The old man grinned. "If you discard your cultivation and cultivate once more for the first time, your body and soul will be at least 5 times stronger than before. The second time will improve your body and soul by 10 times. Moreover, you'll obtain an undying body." "An undying body?" Xianxia's eyes twitched slightly. "Isn't that what Qin Bufan and the others had?" The old man continued, "Of course, it's not a truly undying body, and no one can truly be immortal as well. The undying body I'm talking about is one where you can reconstruct your body if your soul still remains while your body has been destroyed. Conversely, if your body remains but your soul is destroyed, you can use your body to reconstruct your soul as well." Xianxia was visibly moved. After all, it was extremely terrifying. Xianxia asked, "What about the third time?" The old man said, "Both the body and soul will be 20 times stronger, and your soul would be able to leave your body and travel the world." Xianxia asked another question. "The fourth?" The old man said, "Both the body and soul would be improved by 40 times. Moreover, you'll break through the shackles of your body and merge into one with the world. You'll be part of the heavens and the earth, so you'll remain eternal while the heavens and the earth exist." Xianxia spoke solemnly. "Isn't that eternal life? Eternal life?" The old man shook his head. "You must realize that there's an end to everything in this world, even the world itself." Xianxia asked, "What about the fifth?" "The body and soul will break free of the shackles of the world and be capable of moving through the void. While the world might be destroyed, you will still remain eternal." The old man continued, "However, I'm not sure if it'll be like that." Xianxia frowned. "What do you mean?" The old man replied, "Because I've only done it 4 times." Xianxia's face instantly froze, and a long time passed before he spoke. "Didn't you say that you created this technique?" The old man nodded in response. "Indeed. However, the 4th rebirth and above are only based on my deductions, and I haven't had the chance to test it." Xianxia asked, "Why didn't you?" The old man replied, "I face 2 problems. Firstly, my strength has already arrived at a certain extent, and I'm quite afraid of discarding it and starting once more. Because if my deductions were mistaken, then wouldn't I be finished? Secondly, I have quite a few enemies while many others are targeting me as well. If I were to try and cultivate again, then I'm certain that I'll die as soon as I discard my previous cultivation, and they will definitely not allow me to have the slightest chance at reincarnation." Xianxia was speechless. The old man continued, "You'd attained the half-saint realm in the past. While you relied on external forces to attain it, it could actually be considered as the half-saint realm because your foundation is truly too solid. However, you're only at the monarch realm right now. In other words, if you start cultivating my 9 rebirth technique now, then your body and soul would improve by 5 times when you attain the half-saint realm." The corners of Xianxia's eyes twitched slightly. It would be a lie if he said that he wasn't tempted. After all, if he cultivated it now and recovered his strength at the half-saint realm, then his body and soul would instantly become stronger by at least 5 times. Xianxia asked after a long time passed, "What's the price that I have to pay?" The old man said, Why don't you look at my other technique first? Don't worry, it will absolutely not disappoint you. Moreover, it just happens to be suitable to you. If I can't accomplish your request, then looking at it would be completely useless. So, tell me what you want, said Xianxia. The old man smiled. Actually, it's a good thing for you. Xianxia said, please go on. The old man gazed at him and spoke seriously. Be the next sect master of my Tao order. Be the next sect master of the Tao order? Xianxia was stunned. I didn't hear you wrongly, right? The old man nodded. Are you sure you're not joking? Do I look like I'm joking? Why? You should understand the reason. Xianxia remained silent for a long time before he said, firstly, the entire Tao order wishes for nothing more than to kill me. So do you think they would let me be their next sect master? It's naturally impossible if I'm dead. The old man continued. However, I'm not dead. While I'm not in this dimension, no one in the Tao order dares to go against my commands. Do you know why? It isn't merely because I created the Tao order, it's also because the Tao order would be instantly annihilated if it isn't for my presence. Understand? Xianxia asked in a low voice. The other platinum rank sects have seniors standing behind them as well, right? The old man nodded. But all of us aren't in this dimension, and we're unable to easily interfere with the matters of this dimension. In short, if you agree, then the enmity between you and my Tao order will be resolved. Moreover, you can use all the resources of the Tao order. Xianxia said, I refuse. Why? The old man's face turned slightly gloomy, and he said, do you know that while you're a disciple of the ancient sword school, it won't let you be its next sword master? Xianxia gazed at the old man and said, I once said that I wouldn't betray the sword school if it doesn't betray me. The sword school hasn't betrayed me, so how can I betray them? Xianxia said, you'll lose a great deal if you make such a choice. Xianxia replied, so what? The old man gazed at Xianxia for a long time before he said, you know, I've wanted to kill you for 3 times since you arrived here. Xianxia's heart shook as he hadn't expected the old man to really intend to kill him. The old man continued, the first time was when I first laid eyes on you. Your natural talent and potential could really be described with the word terrifying. But you're an enemy of my Tao order. So, I was prepared to eliminate you for the Tao order and prevent it from being destroyed by you. The reason I didn't kill you then was because I wanted to see where your limits were. The second time was when I asked you what the Tao was. Your words shocked me a little, and it made me feel slightly fearful, because I could foresee the price that my Tao order should have to pay if you were allowed to grow. The third and last time was when I asked you if you were willing to join my Tao order. You know, I really hoped that you would agree, because so long as you agreed, then that mad old woman from the ancient sword school would kill you even if I don't. Unfortunately, you didn't agree. While I felt it was a pity, it allowed me to rest at ease as well. Because while you go to extremes, you have your own limits and principles which you live by, and that's something I really admire. So, when he spoke up to this point, the old man heaved a light sigh and said, you don't have to die, and the ancient sword school and Tao order don't have to fight to the death. Xianxia said, but the Tao order clearly refuses to let me go. Let's talk about that later. The old man suddenly stretched out his right hand with his palm facing up. A moment of silence ensued before he slowly clenched his fist. His thumb was pressed against his index finger as he said, my other inheritance is a technique I created all those years ago. It's called the Divine Fist of Destruction. It's a peak saint rank technique, with the foundation that your physical body possesses, and if you're able to cultivate it to its peak, then its strength would definitely surpass saint rank techniques and attain the low grade of the divine rank. I'll execute it once now. Watch it well. As soon as he finished speaking, the old man suddenly smashed his fist towards the sky. Bang! Besides where Xianxia and the old man stood, the space in an area of over 10 kilometers was instantly blasted into pieces. Moreover, Xianxia even sensed that everything in the surroundings, including the spirit energy, there was being destroyed at an alarming rate. Space had shattered, the world had split apart, and spirit energy was drying up. How strong? Yang Ye's eyes narrowed slightly, and there was a solemn expression in them. Besides the true heavenrend, all his other sword techniques couldn't compare to this fist technique. Even the mortal sword or 20 overlapped heavenrends couldn't compare to it. The old man withdrew his fist and said, "You must remember a single thing while executing that technique. You have to possess a domineering aura of supremacy. The stronger the aura is, the stronger the might of the punch would be. Perhaps such an aura would be a huge problem for anyone else, but it shouldn't be a problem for you. Because your aura is domineering enough." At this moment, Yang Yi finally understood why the old man said that the technique suited him. Besides the pretty good foundation his physical body had, it was also because he possessed an aura of supremacy. The old man said, "Where there are people, there is battle. The nobodies fight each other in small conflicts, the great figures fight huge wars, and we cultivators fight battles of life and death. The conflict between you and my Tao order will end here. The Tao order hasn't suffered a loss for many years, so it's quite arrogant and uses hell's coffin for every small thing. If this continues, then it'll suffer greatly when it tries to march on the central divine prefecture in the future. They can just take it as a lesson this time." When he spoke up to this point, the old man flicked his finger, and a strand of white light shot into the center of Yang Ye's forehead. It didn't take long for Yang Yi to sense countless pieces of information surge into his mind. It was the 9 rebirth technique and the divine fist of destruction technique. Meanwhile, the old man flicked once more, and a spatial ring appeared before Yang Yi. He said, "This spatial ring is a symbol of status. No matter how bold they are, they won't dare to act against you while you have this ring in your possession. All right, my mission is complete, and I should vanish now." When he spoke up to this point, the old man's figure gradually faded until he vanished completely. However, the scene around Yang Yi didn't vanish once the old man vanished. A figure suddenly appeared not too far away from him, but that figure was completely covered in a layer of white light. So, he wasn't able to discern the figure's appearance, and he could merely discern from the figure's build that it belonged to a woman. Yang Ye's heart shook because this illusion had been created by the old man, yet the woman before him had actually been able to enter this world created by the old man. In other words, she was at the same level as the old man. The mysterious woman spoke abruptly. "Do you know the true reason why he didn't kill you?" Yang Yi spoke with embarrassment. "He admires me. What nonsense." She spoke angrily. "He changed his treatment of you because I fucking arrived here. Otherwise, you would have died a long time ago. Don't think he looked so kind and amiable. He's a ruthless and horrifying old geezer." Yang Yi asked, "You're a senior from the ancient sword school? You aren't that stupid." She grunted coldly. "That old kid, Jian Wuchen, didn't hesitate to sacrifice his own lifespan to contact me, and he said that I had to send a strand of my spirit down to this world to save you. I didn't intend to come. After all, I've lived for so many years, so what sort of genius have I not seen? However, that fellow Jian Wuchen actually dared to threaten me with leading the ancient sword school to fight the Tao order to the death. That made me quite curious about exactly who was able to make such a steady and composed fellow like Jian Wuchen stop at nothing to protect." Yang Ye's heart felt slightly warm when he heard this, because the ancient sword school had never given up on him, and it was even going to fight the Tao order to the death for him. "Now you've met me," Yang Yi continued. "So do you feel that you're lucky to have come, or the ancient sword school would lose an extraordinary genius? You're really quite thick-skinned." The woman continued, "No matter what, you're not bad, and I didn't come here for nothing. However, your character is definitely one that will cause a huge amount of trouble. Remember this, you can cause trouble, but choose your opponents well, and don't offend those fellows who can instantly kill you, like that old bastard from before. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to save you in time. In short, don't cause too much trouble." Yang Yi asked, "What if someone offends me?" She replied, "Then fight him. What are you keeping your sword for?" Yang Yi asked again, "What if it's one of those living fossils? Run. What if I can't escape? Are you looking for a beating?" Yang Yi was speechless. The woman stayed silent for a moment before she said, "Actually, I didn't want you to join my ancient sword school when I heard your conversation with that old bastard. Because once you do, you might bring great luck to my ancient sword school and even lead it to become a diamond rank sect. However, you might bring calamity upon my ancient sword school as well. Moreover, it might not just be the sword school. Even I might be dragged down by you. So, you can be considered as a double-edged blade. Xianxia fell silent because she was absolutely right. Not to mention anything else, he would definitely fight Sky Divine Hall. At that time, it was very likely for it to make the ancient sword school become enemies with Sky Divine Hall. Xianxia took a deep breath and said, I can withdraw if you don't want me to join the sword school. I won't blame anyone for that. What nonsense! She suddenly shouted angrily, Do I look like I'm fucking terrified of trouble? The corners of Xianxia's mouth twitched. She really has quite an explosive temper. The woman continued, It was those words you spoke in the end which changed my mind. You said that you wouldn't betray the sword school if it doesn't betray you. Very good. At least you act like a man. I'll say something to you as well. My sword school won't betray you if you don't betray it. As soon as she finished speaking, her figure shook slightly, and then she vanished from Xianxia's field of vision. At the same time, the surroundings started transforming and returning to normal. Xianxia passed the 5th test. Where is the Tao order going to put its face now? Someone suddenly exclaimed from amidst the spectators. The test of the Tao. Since the Tao order had been established, no one had ever passed that test. Yet now, it had been overcome by a disciple of the Tao order's sword enemy. At this moment, it wasn't just the members of the ancient sword school who were shocked. Even the members of the Tao order were shocked. Countless disciples of the Tao order had suddenly appeared beneath the stairs, and just like the disciples of the sword school and all the other countless cultivators here, their gazes had descended onto Xianxia. Taoist Gu and 2 more Saint Realm experts were standing on Xianxia's sides while Fu Jinxian's master, a gray-robed old man, and a black-robed old man stood before them. Taoist Gu and the old men had solemn expressions on their faces, and they seemed vigilant as if they were facing a formidable enemy. On the other hand, the 3 from the Tao order had gloomy expressions while they stared fixedly at Xianxia. The atmosphere here was quite tense and slightly heavy. What did Xianxia's passage through the 5th test represent? It represented that Xianxia's natural talent and strength might be the most terrifying throughout the Tao order and only second to the founding ancestor of the Tao order. In other words, if Xianxia were to continue growing, then the Tao order would definitely have a peerless expert as its enemy in the future. Anyone with the slightest bit of wisdom would be aware that enemies, and especially enemies with extremely great potential, should be killed before they could grow. The Tao order understood that principle, and so did the ancient sword school. So, Taoist Gu's group seemed like they were facing a powerful enemy, because it was very likely for the Tao order to stop at nothing to kill Xianxia. Meanwhile, the black-robed old man who led the group from the Tao order suddenly gazed at Xianxia, and there was a trace of complicated emotions in his eyes. Why? Why do you just happen to be a disciple of the ancient sword school? Why did you have to be an irreconcilable enemy of my Tao order? Forget it, it's meaningless now. When he spoke up to this point, the black-robed old man waved his right hand. Forbidden eradication formation. The black-robed old man's voice resounded through the sky. Taoist Gu and the others' expressions changed when they heard this, and Taoist Gu roared furiously, Take him and go! As soon as he finished speaking, he flicked with his finger, and a huge sword tore through the sky and instantly arrived before the black-robed old man. The black-robed old man suddenly made a tearing motion towards the space before him, and he tore the huge sword into 2. While the sword had shattered, endless threads of sword energy erupted from within it, and the sword energy instantly enveloped the black-robed old man and the others. Meanwhile, the other 2 old men immediately grabbed Xianxia and were about to leave once Taoist Gu spoke. However, their expressions changed abruptly because a huge pitch-black barrier of light had suddenly appeared around them. There was a dense expanse of strange symbols glowing on the pitch-black barrier, and they were accompanied by all sorts of strange demon beasts as well. The old men revealed extremely solemn expressions when they saw the pitch-black barrier of light. Meanwhile, The countenances of countless disciples of the ancient sword school and the spectating cultivators had turned ghastly pale because even an idiot knew what the Tao order was planning. While the saints fight, the commoners suffer. Bang! Suddenly, a huge explosion resounded as the black-robed old man was instantly blasted backwards by the threads of sword energy. However, the threads of sword energy didn't vanish and returned to Taoist goo instead. All of you won't be able to escape. As soon as the black-robed old man finished speaking, 2 more old men appeared here, and they were saints as well. There were a total of 5 saints on the Tao order side. Taoist goo spoke solemnly. Looks like your Tao order intends to fight desperately. The black-robed man pointed at Yang Yi and said, He must die. Even if your ancient sword school and my Tao order must go to war. Yang Ye's talent had even aroused fear in the higher-ups of the entire Tao order. If the ancient sword school were to foster him with its full strength, then Yang Yi would definitely become an existence who destroyed the balance between their sects in the future. At that time, it would be the time of the Tao order's destruction. So, the higher-ups had unanimously decided that Yang Yi had to die. Taoist Gu spoke solemnly. Once our sects enter into war, both our sects will definitely suffer severe losses. If he doesn't die, then it might be my Tao order that suffers severe losses in the future. The black-robed man continued, I know that you're trying to delay, but you should be aware that the forbidden eradication formation was left behind by the founding ancestor of my Tao order, and it can kill saints. So, even Jian Wuchen wouldn't be able to break through this formation in a short period of time. As he spoke, the 5 of them surrounded Taoist Gu and the others from all directions, and all of their gazes had descended onto Yang Yi. So long as the black-robed old man gave the order, they would use their full strength to kill Yang Yi. Not to mention that Taoist Gu only had a total of 3 saints on his side, including himself. They couldn't stop these 5 saints from killing Yang Yi even if 3 more saints came. Right when they were about to attack, Yang Yi suddenly said, Do you know what the 5th test was like? The black-robed old man gazed at Yang Yi and asked, What are you trying to say? Yang Yi grinned. I encountered an old man. He said I was very pleasing to the eye, so he gave me something. When he spoke up to this point, Yang Yi withdrew the spatial ring that the Tao order's founding ancestor had given him, and he said, It's this. Do all of you recognize it? The black-robed old man and the others were stunned and filled with disbelief when they saw it. How could that be possible? How could that be possible? How could the founding ancestor have possibly given that ring to you? How could that be possible? The black-robed old man's eyes were filled with shock and disbelief, and it was the same for the other 4 saints from the Tao order. So all of you know what it is? Yang Yi grinned. Can you tell me what it is? Because he didn't tell me what it was when he gave it to me. The black-robed old man suddenly made a gesture, and then black spatial ring flew into his grasp. He gazed at it for a short while before he took a deep breath, and then he flicked it back to Yang Yi. What else did he tell you? Yang Yi smiled. Nothing much. He just asked me to be the next sect master of the Tao order. It wasn't just the black-robed old man and the others whose expressions changed upon hearing this. Even the members of the ancient sword school had a similar reaction, especially Taoist Gu's group of 3. Their gazes descended onto Yang Yi as they wanted to see if Yang Yi was joking. The black-robed old man remained silent for a long time before he said, What was your answer? I refused, of course. Yang Yi continued, because I told him that numerous people in the Tao order want to kill me. So, wouldn't I be leaping into a pit of flames by trying to be your next sect master? Taoist Gu and the others instantly heaved sighs of relief when they heard Yang Yi, and the black-robed old man's group heaved sighs of relief as well. Yang Yi suddenly sighed. That old geezer said that so long as I have this ring, then no one in the Tao order would dare to act against me. But now it would seem like he was just talking nonsense. How dare you? The black-robed old man suddenly roared furiously. But he seemed to have thought of something and calmed himself. And then he tried his best to make his voice sound gentler as he said, He's the founding ancestor of my Tao order, and he's your... In short, please be respectful towards him. Yang Yi laughed coldly and said, Did I say something wrong? Looks like he was just exaggerating. So, it's pointless to keep this ring anymore. As soon as he finished speaking, Xianxia casually tossed the ring away, and it dropped down from midair. The expressions of the black-robed old man and the others changed. The black-robed old man stretched out his hand and gestured, and the ring instantly flew into his grasp. He gazed at Xianxia and was clearly quite furious, but he didn't flare up, and he spoke in with a gentle expression on his face instead. Since the founding ancestor gave it to you, then keep it well. Don't worry. From this moment onwards, the enmity between you and my Tao order is a matter of the past. Really? Asked Xianxia. The black-robed man quickly nodded. Of course. Xianxia said, All right, then I guess I have no choice but to keep it. As he spoke, he stretched out his hand and the spatial ring instantly flew into his grasp. The black-robed old man and the others heaved slight sighs of relief when they witnessed this scene. Meanwhile, Xianxia said, Right, the old man told me one more thing. What? The black-robed man and the others immediately revealed solemn expressions. Xianxia continued, Nothing much. He just said that I can ask the Tao order if I need anything. Right, I just happen to be quite poor. So, I'd like to borrow 1,000,000 extreme-grade energy stones from you. Don't worry, I guarantee to return it. The expressions of the black-robed man and the others instantly became unsightly. The beautiful woman spoke abruptly, Kid, that's enough. Xianxia gazed at her and said, Right, didn't you say that you would give me your writing if I passed the 5th test? As a Saint Realm expert, you wouldn't go back on your word, right? The corners of her mouth twitched slightly, and then she said, How could I possibly do that? However, I don't have the time to write for you right now. How about I write it for you if you're still alive 10,000 years from now? Xianxia gave her a thumbs up and said, Nice. As soon as he finished speaking, he gazed at the black-robed old man and said, Don't tell me you don't even have 1,000,000 extreme-grade energy stones. Or perhaps that old man was lying. If that's the case, then what's the point of keeping this ring? I'll give it back to you. As soon as he finished speaking, he flicked it back to the black-robed old man. The corners of their mouths twitched incessantly. Quite some time passed before the black-robed old man took a deep breath, and then he flicked the ring back to Xianxia and said, What are you talking about? Since the founding ancestor said that, then how could we possibly not obey him? There are 1,000,000 extreme-grade energy stones in here. Just take it as our gift to you. You don't have to return it. If it was possible, he naturally hoped that Xianxia would return it, but the problem was, would Xianxia do that? Would he? As far as the black-robed old man was concerned, that shameless fellow who was using the name of their founding ancestor would absolutely not do that. How could I possibly just take it? Xianxia seemed rather troubled, and he struggled for a long time before he said, All right, since it's an expression of your kind intentions, then I'll take it. As he spoke, he put the spatial ring away and said, We're leaving now. Take care. The expression on the black-robed old man's face was quite interesting as he spoke these words. Xianxia grinned, and he was about to turn around and leave. However, a voice suddenly resounded from afar. You're leaving just like that? It's the protector of order. Someone exclaimed from amidst the crowd. The protector of order. Countless people were shocked. There were 5 top geniuses amongst the younger generation of Pine Prefecture. They were the ancient sword school's Lu Wanner, the Tao Order's protector of order, the Endless Devil Sect's Void Lord, the Ocean of Clouds Academy's Shangguan Yunhai, and Sky Divine Hall's Lu Qianxiao. They were considered the representatives of the prefecture's younger generation. They were the true geniuses favored by the heavens, and they were the young people who stood at the peak of the prefecture beneath saints. Xianxia turned around and looked over, and he saw a young man standing in the sky. The man seemed to be just around the age of 20. He wore green clothes, had hair that hung loosely to his shoulders, and the hair on his temples were slightly gray. It was like a snowflake that studded his hair. Besides that, the young man had an aura that was deep like an ocean, and his strength was unfathomable. That was what Xianxia felt at this moment. It really is the protector of order, it really is him. He actually showed himself. Presently, the members of the Tao order have either lost or died, and it would really be unable to regain any face if he didn't show himself. Who do all of you think is stronger amongst them? The protector of order. It's definitely the protector of order. I think the protector of order is stronger as well. Yang Yi is only at the monarch realm in the end, but the protector of order is at the half-saint realm. So, how could Yang Yi be a match for him? While Yang Yi can surmount his realm of cultivation, the protector of order can do the same. So, Yang Yi will definitely lose if they fight now. I'd thought that Lu Wan'er was the only one in the ancient sword school who's worthy of being my opponent. But now it would seem like there's one more. You've come to slap my Tao order in the face. But how can it be considered as a true slap to the face if you don't fight me? Qing Daofu. Qing Daofu gazed at Yang Yi and said, "So, shall we fight?" Daoist Gu spoke in a low voice. "You're at the half-saint realm. Daofu, let them go." The black-robed old man spoke with a trace of helplessness and unwillingness in his voice. Qing Daofu shook his head and said, "While he's the one that the founding ancestor chose to inherit his mantle, he isn't a member of my Tao order. Since he came to slap my Tao order in the face, then as a member of the Tao order, I have to regain that lost face for my Tao order." When he spoke up to this point, he gazed at Yang Yi and said, "I'm a mid-rank half-saint, but you're at the monarch realm, so it wouldn't be fair to fight you. How about we determine the outcome with a single move? It's my loss if you can resist a single move of mine. All right? One move. One move. One move. One move." Countless disciples of the Tao order roared fiercely from the ground below. Their voices were quite hysterical, and they seemed as if they wanted to vent the grievance they experienced earlier. All the disciples of the ancient sword school gazed at Yang Yi, and the intent to fight could be seen in their eyes. Countless cultivators were looking at Yang Yi. If Qing Daofu asked for a battle of life and death, then they would understand and accept Yang Ye's refusal, and they would even look down upon Qing Daofu. After all, he was a mid-rank half-saint, and that was more than an entire realm above Yang Yi. However, Qing Daofu hadn't asked for a life and death battle, and he merely wanted Yang Yi to resist a single move from him. If Yang Yi still didn't dare agree when it was just a single move, then everything he'd accomplished until now would be in vain. Because everyone would say that Yang Yi didn't even dare to face a single move from the protector of order. Yang Yi grinned as all of them watched, and he said, "Not to mention one move, so what even if it's 10 or 100? OM. The blood of countless disciples from the ancient sword school boiled, and then countless sword howls resounded throughout the surroundings and shot into the sky. Good. As expected of my disciple. Daoist Gu's blood couldn't help but boil as well. The other two old men by Daoist Gu's side nodded slightly. It wasn't just the three saints from the ancient sword school. Even the black-robed old man and the others in the distance had expressed their approval in their hearts, and there was a trace of admiration in their eyes. If their identities were disregarded, then Yang Yi really was very outstanding, and he could be said to not be inferior to Qing Daofu at all. At this moment, they faintly understood why Yang Yi had been able to obtain their founding ancestors' inheritance. Qing Daofu nodded when he heard Yang Yi and said, "So, you've agreed?" Yang Yi shook his head and said, "If we fight and you win, then you'll regain face for your Tao order. But if I win, I gain nothing, because I've already gained face for my ancient sword school. So, I can accept your challenge, but you must prepare compensation that's capable of making me accept the challenge. Kid, are you a slave to wealth?" The beautiful woman from the Tao order couldn't help but speak in a low voice. Yang Yi shrugged and said, "It can't be helped. I've been poor to the point I'm afraid of it." When he spoke up to this point, he gazed at the black-robed old man and said, "1,000,000 extreme-grade energy stones. Give me 1,000,000 extreme-grade energy stones and I'll resist a move of his. If you don't, then I'm leaving. Moreover, once I do, it'll be quite difficult for your Tao order to regain its lost honor. So you must think this through." The reason he was extorting the Tao order was actually just as he'd said. He was very poor. While his meridians had been repaired, the tiny vortex still hadn't returned to normal. He knew that it would need a huge amount of violet profound energy to recover, and that would require a huge amount of energy stones. He didn't know the exact amount that would be needed to restore the tiny vortex to its prior state, but he had no doubt that it was absolutely an enormous amount. So, he had to do all he could to obtain even more extreme-grade energy stones. How about we do this? Qing Daofu suddenly said, "We'll give you 1,000,000 extreme-grade energy stones if you're able to resist an attack of mine, and you'll get nothing if you fail. All right?" Yang Yi replied, "All right." Actually, Yang Yi knew that he had to resist a move from Qing Daofu no matter what, because it was the Dao Order's last chance to regain its lost face. If he refused, then it would definitely bury a potential cause for future trouble. After all, it was the Dao Order's last chance to regain its lost honor. So while it might not seek revenge from him in the open, would it not do so in secret? Or perhaps countless geniuses of the Dao Order would come to challenge him in the future. If he couldn't resist Qing Daofu's attack, then the Dao Order would naturally be able to regain some of its lost honor, and it would be equivalent to having an out from the situation. But once he succeeded, it would be equivalent to telling the Dao Order that he could fight Qing Daofu, and the Dao Order had to either abandon its intentions to seek revenge or get an existence who was even stronger than Qing Daofu to challenge him. No matter which path the Dao Order chose, it would spare him from a huge amount of trouble. Daoist Gu hesitated for a moment when he heard Yang Yi agree to it, and then he said, "Are you confident?" He would naturally be confident in Yang Ye's ability if it was someone in the same realm of cultivation. However, Qing Daofu was an entire realm above Yang Yi. While it was just a single move, it was exactly why he couldn't rest at ease. Because while Qing Daofu wouldn't use his strongest attack, he would definitely not hold back either. Yang Yi grinned. "Will the sect reward me for succeeding? Kid, you really are a slave to wealth." Daoist Gu chuckled. "Don't worry. There definitely will be rewards. I'll forge a sword chest for you if you succeed. A sword chest that's made specially for you. Don't worry. It will definitely not be lower than the saint rank." "Then it's decided." Yang Yi grinned as he looked towards Qing Daofu. "Come, let me see how strong the so-called geniuses of this world are." He'd met many geniuses since he arrived in the Radiant Dimension, but to be honest, not a single one was worthy of him taking them seriously. Qing Daofu was one of the top geniuses in Pine Prefecture, and he was equally famous as the young hall master of Sky Divine Hall. So, Yang Yi wanted to see exactly how strong the top geniuses of Pine Prefecture were. After all, according to Mu Hanshan, even in Nanjing was slightly inferior to that young hall master right now. Daoist Gu and the others immediately stepped back. After that, Daoist Gu and the black-robed old man exchanged glances before they waved their hands, and the space around Yang Yi and Qing Daofu was instantly fortified by their joint strength. At the same time, an extremely thick spatial wall appeared around Yang Yi and Qing Daofu. Qing Daofu was a half-saint, so his strength could tear through space with ease, whereas Yang Ye's strength could crush space with ease as well. So, a collision between them could definitely cause the surrounding space to collapse, and it would definitely affect the spectators if they didn't seal up the space around Yang Yi and Qing Daofu. Moreover, even the mountains around the Dao Order's territory might be affected as well. "Come, let me see exactly how great you are." As soon as Qing Daofu finished speaking, he waved both his hands. In an instant, the world dimmed down as a thick layer of jet-black clouds enveloped the sky above. Silver light flickered incessantly within the jet-black clouds, and it was an extremely astonishing sight. At the same time, a gale suddenly appeared in the surroundings. Its gusts were sharp like blades, and they sliced the spatial walls in the surroundings to the point it trembled. Besides that, fine droplets of rain had suddenly started to descend from the sky. It was only just a drizzle in the beginning, but it didn't take long for it to grow stronger until it raged through the surroundings. However, the most astonishing sight was the waves of flame that had appeared in the sky. The flames covered half the sky, and they formed a striking contrast with the jet-black clouds. The mid-grade Saint Rank 4-element technique. A trace of excitement flashed through the black-robed old man's eyes. "I never expected him to have succeeded at cultivating it. He truly is an astonishing genius. Once it's cultivated to the advanced stage, it can use the energy of wind, rain, and lightning. It's equivalent to the might of the heaven Tao. Ha ha ha. Good. Very good. At this moment, the black-robed old man's eyes were filled with confidence. And it was like Qing Daofu was bound to win. As for Daoist Gu and the others, their expressions had turned solemn, and they were on guard and prepared to act at any moment. Yang Yi had a solemn expression on his face as well. While this technique didn't carry the energy of the laws, it was even more terrifying than the laws of speed, because it was capable of posing a threat to his sword domain. If he activated his sword domain to resist it, then even if the sword domain didn't collapse, he would still lose some of his lifespan. Crackle! Suddenly, a bolt of lightning tore through the clouds and descended before Qing Daofu. Qing Daofu stretched out his hand and grabbed the bolt of lightning that was still connected to the clouds above, and the powerful force it possessed caused his hair to flutter, while a trace of ferocity and madness could be seen in his eyes. Yang Yi, take this! Qing Daofu's voice resounded. In an instant, the world dimmed down. As soon as Qing Daofu spoke, the wind, flames, and rain here instantly formed a huge dragon. The dragon was almost 3 kilometers long, and it laid across the sky while emanating an aura capable of destroying the world. Swish! Qing Daofu suddenly waved his right hand, and the bolt of lightning in his grasp instantly struck the dragon. The lightning immediately fused into the dragon and formed countless fine scales all around it. At this moment, the aura it emanated grew even more terrifying. It was truly an aura of absolute destruction. All the spectators watched this scene with astonishment. Obviously, they'd been shocked by it. While all of them knew that Qing Daofu was one of the 5 top geniuses of the prefecture, very few had witnessed his strength in battle. Now they'd witnessed it, and it had completely exceeded their imagination, because it didn't seem like the strength of a single person. It seemed like the energy of nature that came from the heaven Tao. Daoist Gu and the others frowned slightly as well, because even many high-rank half-saints wouldn't be able to execute such an attack. So, it made them wonder how Yang Yi would resist it. Lend me your swords. Yang Ye's voice suddenly resounded, and then the swords of countless disciples from the ancient sword school shot up into the air and arrived in the sky above Yang Yi. In an instant, rays of light flashed through the surroundings while sword energy suffused the area. The brows of Daoist Gu and the others were pressed together even more tightly because it was utterly impossible for Yang Yi to rely on those swords to stop Qing Daofu's attack. Unless his sword intent had been restored to the 3rd level of the heaven rank. Otherwise, even 10,000 swords wouldn't make a difference. There was worry in the eyes of everyone from the ancient sword school because they were similarly clearly aware that it was utterly impossible for Yang Yi to resist Qing Daofu's attack with those swords alone. What's he trying to do? Chun Dong's brows were knit tightly together while bewilderment could be seen in his eyes. Everyone watched with bewilderment as Yang Yi suddenly pointed his finger at the dragon, and then countless rays of light shot forward. Meanwhile, his figure followed those swords and charged towards the dragon as well. Roar! The dragon roared under Qing Daofu's command, and then it carried a terrifying aura capable of obliterating the world as it smashed down towards Yang Yi. Everywhere it passed, space instantly started surging and rippling. It was a truly astonishing sight. Suddenly, a mysterious force appeared here. The sword domain. The expressions of the black-robed old man and the others from the Tao order changed slightly. They saw countless rays of light cover Yang Yi, and they were utterly unable to sense Yang Yi's presence because the sword domain had isolated him from the outside world. Qing Daofu suddenly cried out involuntarily, "How could that be possible?" As soon as his voice resounded, the expressions of everyone here had changed, because Qing Daofu's dragon was actually dispersing at an alarming rate, and it took less than a breath of time for the huge dragon which was formed from 4 elements to vanish in the sky. Everyone here was flabbergasted, and it even included Daoist Gu's group and the black-robed old man's group. The light from those swords dispersed and Yang Ye's figure appeared before their eyes. At this moment, there were slight changes to Yang Ye's appearance. His countenance was ghastly pale and seemed like he'd lost all his blood. Moreover, just like Qing Daofu, The hair hanging down from his temples had actually turned slightly white. How powerful! Yang Yi touched his hair while a solemn expression filled his eyes. Just like when he'd killed Wang Yinyang, Yang Yi had first utilized the sword domain to isolate himself from the outside world, and then utilized the decay laws. As expected, even that huge dragon hadn't been able to avoid being decayed by the decay laws. However, he suffered from backlash, because the energy contained within the huge dragon was too powerful. So it had caused Yang Ye's sword domain to be impacted to a certain extent. That impact caused him to lose almost 100 years of his lifespan. Moreover, he suffered backlash as well when his decay laws collided with the energy contained within the dragon. It was the first time he realized that even the energy of the laws wasn't invincible. When a force arrived at a certain level, then not to mention the energy of the laws, it could even pose a threat to a domain. Of course, the main reason was that the gap in their cultivations was quite huge. If they were at the same realm of cultivation, then Qing Daofu's attack would have definitely been incapable of posing a threat to his sword domain and decay laws. All in all, his cultivation was still too low. A low cultivation wouldn't affect the outcome too much when facing ordinary geniuses, but he was definitely at a disadvantage when facing someone at Qing Daofu's level. Qing Daofu asked solemnly, "How did you do it?" Daoist Gu and the others gazed at Yang Yi as well, because they wanted to know the answer as well. After all, Yang Yi had dispersed Qing Daofu's attack without making a single sound. While it seemed like he'd paid a certain price, it was still quite terrifying and mysterious. It made them wonder exactly what he'd utilized to accomplish that. Yang Yi replied, "Give me 10 million extreme-grade energy stones and I'll tell you. All right?" The corners of the black-robed old man and the others' mouths twitched, and they were almost unable to stop themselves from slapping Yang Yi to death. As for the members of Daoist Gu's group, they shook their heads and thought inwardly, "Isn't that fellow a little too greedy?" Qing Daofu glanced at Yang Yi and said, "I lost." When he spoke up to this point, he flicked a spatial ring over to Yang Yi before turning around with the intention of leaving. Yang Yi suddenly said, "Wait, what?" Qing Daofu continued, "I lost, not the Dao order. So you can insult me if you want. It has nothing to do with the Dao order." The black-robed old man and the others gazed at Yang Yi as well, and they had quite hostile expressions on their faces. Yang Yi said, "You didn't lose." Qing Daofu and the others were quite stunned by this. And then Qing Daofu turned around and looked at Yang Yi as he said, "What do you mean?" Yang Yi replied, "You merely executed a single move and I only overcame one move. How could that be considered as your loss? How about we consider it as a tie? We can have a truly fair match when I attain the half-saint realm in the future. All right?" No matter why the founding ancestor of the Dao order had passed his inheritance to Yang Yi had benefited from it, and he'd avoided a huge amount of trouble. So, he didn't mind giving the Dao order a way out of the situation. After all, if news were to spread that Qing Daofu had lost to him, then the Dao order's reputation would definitely fall to rock bottom. Even if he didn't do it for the Dao order, he had to do it for the founding ancestor of the Dao order. Moreover, Qing Daofu really hadn't lost to him. The black-robed old man and the others were stunned when they heard Yang Yi, and then they exchanged glances and saw bewilderment in each other's eyes. They seemed to have never expected Yang Yi to actually act in this way. After all, so long as news of Qing Daofu's defeat was to spread, then he would definitely become the most dazzling genius throughout the prefecture. Moreover, his status in the ancient sword school was skyrocket, and the sword school would attach great importance to him. However, he'd chosen to do this instead. Daoist Gu and the others were extremely puzzled and bewildered as well. Qing Daofu asked, "Why?" Yang Yi replied, "No reason. Just as I said, you really didn't lose to me. If we were to fight now, then it would mostly end with my loss. I know that the Dao order wants to regain its lost honor, and you can. So, let's fight once I attain the half-saint realm, all right? However, I hope the Dao order doesn't continue sending people to look for trouble with me during that period. If you don't look for trouble with me, then I would naturally do the same." When he spoke up to this point, he indicated that Daoist Gu should tear open the spatial walls around them. As soon as Taoist Gu did that, he spoke loudly, "Qing Daofu, you really do deserve your reputation." Yang Yi wasn't a pedantic person. Not only did he feel that reputation was useless to him, he even felt that it was a burden. So he'd never attached importance to reputation. Of course, the reason he treated the Tao order like this was mainly because of its founding ancestor. The old man had given him such a gift, so he truly couldn't bear to continue humiliating the Tao order. He was such a person. If one gave him face, then he would give them face. But if someone didn't give him face, then he would crush that person. As expected of the protector of order, Qing Daofu. Even someone proud like Yang Yi is respectful to him. After all, Yang Yi crushed all the other members of the Tao order like dogs. Of course, Qing Daofu is one of the 5 great geniuses of the prefecture. While Yang Yi is an extraordinary genius, he's still too young. Perhaps he might be able to fight Qing Daofu if he's given a few more years. Indeed, the 5 top geniuses of the prefecture would be 6 if Yang Yi is given a little bit more time. The black-robed old man and the others had much better expressions on their faces when they looked at Yang Yi now. Qing Daofu was the representative of the Tao order's younger generation, and he was like their pillar of mental support. If even he lost, then it would definitely be a huge blow to the Tao order. While Qing Daofu hadn't really lost to Yang Yi and had only executed a single move, but Qing Daofu was an entire realm higher than Yang Yi. Under such circumstances, since Yang Yi had resisted Qing Daofu's attack, then strictly speaking, it was considered as Qing Daofu's loss. So, Yang Yi saying that and acting in such a way caused the black-robed old man and the others to be unable to help but feel a trace of gratefulness. Qing Daofu gazed at Yang Yi for a long time before he said, "We'll fight when you attain the half-saint realm." He turned around and left once he finished speaking. The black-robed old man glanced at Yang Yi, and then he turned around and left with the others. Yang Yi gazed at Taoist Gu and said, "Let's head back to the sword school." He had a few million extreme-grade energy stones now, and he had both the Herculean sword and the divine fist of destruction which he'd just learned. He had to organize all of this as soon as possible, and then improve his strength as quickly as he could. After all, he hadn't forgotten that in Nanjing and Mu Hanshan were waiting for him. Taoist Gu nodded. Suddenly, he looked up towards the sky and said, "That little girl Lu Wanner is here." As soon as he finished speaking, a ray of light flashed, and then a woman arrived here. Senior Sister Lu. Besides Taoist Gu and the others, all the other disciples of the sword school bowed slightly to the woman and spoke respectfully. A woman stood on her sword in midair. It was Lu Wanner, of course. Lu Wanner was wearing a light green dress, and it was studded by sword-shaped lotuses. They emanated faint strands of sword intent, and it seemed sharp yet didn't diminish the elegance of her dress. Besides that, her waist was bound tightly by a green sash. As the wind blew against her while she stood on her sword, her green dress clung closely to her delicate figure, causing her slender and graceful figure to be vividly displayed. It was an extremely moving sight. Compared to how weak and gentle she'd been in the past, she seemed confident and composed now. Yang Yi had a complicated expression in his eyes as he gazed at her. All those years ago, she was a weak and delicate girl who didn't even dare to speak loudly. Yet now, she'd grown to become a person who countless geniuses respected. Lu Wanner was looking at Yang Yi while countless disciples of the sword school were looking at her, and most of their eyes carried affection that wasn't concealed at all. Lu Wanner was a true proud genius in the sword school. Not only was her strength at the top of its younger generation, she was gorgeous and usually very amiable. It could be said that she was the goddess in the hearts of countless disciples. The only flaw she had was that she was too obsessed with the sword, and she practically had no room for anything but the sword. Everyone watched as Yang Yi walked over to Lu Wanner, and then he stretched out his hand and rubbed her head as he smiled. "Wanner, long time no see." Countless people in the surroundings were petrified. He actually touched Senior Sister Lu's head. He even called Senior Sister Lu by her name, "Wanner. Are we really not seeing things? Are we really not hearing things? I'm going to fight him. Don't stop me. I'm going to fight him." He actually dared to do that to senior sister Lu. I'm going to fight him. Ah, don't stop me. We aren't stopping you. How bold of him. He actually dared to try and make a move on senior sister Lu. Just watch. Senior sister Lu will definitely tear him apart. She'll chop him into pieces. The expressions of Taoist Gu and the others had changed slightly as well. After all, they were clearly aware of her disposition. While she was usually amiable and never got angry, she wasn't someone that could just be offended without any consequences, because she would kill when she was angry. Has his mind been overcome by lust? Taoist Gu couldn't help but break out in cold sweat on Xianxia's behalf. Lu Wanner was the master of the sword school's personal disciple, so it wasn't exaggerated to say that her backing was the strongest throughout the ancient sword school. So, if she really did attack Yang Yi, then even he couldn't say anything about it. However, they were all surprised because Lu Wanner didn't attack Yang Yi. She walked over to Yang Yi and jumped into his embrace. She placed her head by his shoulder and spoke softly. I thought you were... She could never forget this man who stood before her, because it was he who saved her life, and it was he who changed her life. Otherwise, she would be dead a long time ago. The jaws of everyone here almost struck the ground from shock when they witnessed this scene, and it included Taoist Gu and the others whose faces had stiffened. Yang Yi took a death breath and said, I did almost die. She raised her head and looked at him for a short while. Suddenly, she took his hand and said, Let's go somewhere else. As soon as she finished speaking, she waved her hand, and then a ray of light flashed before both of them vanished on the spot. Crack! It was the sound of countless hearts shattering throughout the surroundings. On a mountain, Yang Yi and Lu Wanner sat on the edge of a cliff while they gazed at the chasm before them. The chasm was filled with white mist, and it simply seemed like a realm for immortals. She suddenly said, You're much weaker than before. Yang Yi smiled. You aren't just a little bit stronger than before. Even I might not be able to defeat you now. He wasn't being humble. Lu Wanner possessed third-level heaven rank sword intent right now, and she was at the half-saint realm. Moreover, she'd inherited the inheritance of the sword spirit's last master and received the full support of the ancient sword school. She could be said to be not inferior to him at all. Lu Wanner suddenly turned her head to look at Yang Yi, and a short while passed before she cracked a smile. This smile simply made all flowers dim in comparison, and even Yang Yi was slightly dazed by it. She said, You know, I've always hoped to obtain your acknowledgement. I'd thought that I would never have a chance in my lifetime, but the heavens was good to me. It didn't just give me the opportunity, it allowed me to accomplish my wish. When she spoke up to this point, she turned her head and looked up towards the distant sky. All those years ago on Profounder Continent, you were the existence that all of us in the younger generation had to look up to. At that time, I hoped that I could head out and help you whenever I saw you fighting with other experts. However, I didn't have the ability to do that. I really envied in Nanjing because she could fight by your side. Yet I could only be a burden to you. That was really not a pleasant feeling. Yang Yi smiled. You're not weaker to me at all right now. Lu Wanner asked, You really think so? Yang Yi nodded. She looked at him for a long time before she said, How about we have a spar once you attain the half-saint realm? Yang Yi gazed at her and said, You really want to defeat me, huh? She nodded. I do indeed. Why? Because you'll definitely be unable to forget me if I do. A moment of silence ensued, and only the howls of the wind here could be heard. Lu Wanner suddenly said, Have you realized it? You have a flaw, and your sword Dao will definitely be able to rise a level higher if you can overcome that flaw. Yang Yi said, Go ahead. She continued, You're a very decisive person, and you'll advance courageously without looking back and never give up once you've decided to do something. At the same time, you're one who follows your heart, because you dare to admit the innermost thoughts in your heart, and you go along with those thoughts. These are the reasons why your attainments in Sword Dao are extremely formidable. However, there's one thing which you fail to follow your heart on. Not only do you refuse to follow your heart, you even avoid it. That thing is your feelings. When she spoke up to this point, she suddenly moved closer to him and looked him in the eyes. You've always adopted a passive position when it comes to your feelings. Do you know what type of man is the most sad and detestable? Those who clearly want it yet don't dare to do so and even try to feign being upright. You're not such a man, but do you realize that your avoidance will cause the same pain to women as those type of men would? And Bairu likes you, Ding Xiaoyao likes you, even in Nanjing likes you. But what about you? You've been constantly avoiding them. Don't tell me you didn't have the time to care about things like that, because that would just be an excuse. Don't tell me accepting all of them would be unfair to all of them, because that's an excuse as well. Since you love them and they love you, then as the man in the relationship, you should take the initiative to admit those feelings and not constantly avoid it. Yang Yi remained silent for a long time before he laughed bitterly. Warner, you've really become quite sharp with your words. Every single one of them strikes the heart. My heart was almost shaken by them. Lu Warner said, Am I wrong? Yang Yi shook his head and said, You are very right. I really have been quite cowardly when it comes to my feelings. Now I vaguely understand why many sword cultivators sever their emotions. Because all emotions are a shackle. One either has to go along with them or sever them, but I'm definitely incapable of severing them. Lu Warner cracked a smile again and said, It's impossible for anyone to be perfect. Thinking like that is for the best. Anyway, what do you intend to do now? Just stay at the ancient sword school. Yang Yi shook his head and said, I might not be able to stay in the sword school for long, because I have numerous things that I need to do. Most importantly, I have to look for Nanjing, Xiao Yushi, and the others. And Nanjing is at Sky Divine Hall. Lu Warner said. According to the rumors, Lu Qianxiao intends to force her to marry him. Yang Yi nodded. I know. Lu Warner glanced at him and said, Lu Qianxiao is very strong, and Sky Divine Hall is stronger. Yang Yi grinned. How strong? She replied, You're definitely not a match for him now. Yang Yi nodded. Perhaps you're right, but no matter how strong he is, and even if he has attained the Saint Realm, I still have to go, right? I know. She continued. You must recover your sword intent now. Not only must you recover it, you must improve your strength as well. I know that you're very confident in your strength, and you definitely possess formidable trump cards. However, you must not underestimate him. All right? Because it's very like that you will die if you do that. Lu Warner had a serious expression on her face when she finished speaking. Yang Yi asked, Is he really that strong? He can be considered as the stronger amongst the five of us. Lu Warner continued, Actually, rumors say that he can attain the Saint Realm at any time, but he has been constantly suppressing it because of his cultivation technique. So, while he still isn't at the Saint Realm, even some saints aren't able to kill him with ease. He isn't even 30 yet, right? Yang Yi frowned. A saint at the age of 30? She answered, There's a type of people in this world that are called innate saints. Those who can attain the Saint Realm before the age of 30 are called innate saints. I'm not sure if Lu Qianxiao is one, but there really are innate saints in the Central Divine Prefecture. In other words, extraordinary geniuses who've attained the Saint Realm before the age of 30 do exist. Yang Yi remained silent for a long time before he suddenly stood up. Not to mention that he still isn't a saint right now. Why would I fear him even if he's a saint? I don't even fear the heavens. So why would I fear a man? Bang! Suddenly, a bolt of lightning appeared in the sky, and it struck straight down towards Yang Yi.